say, I am. He wants them to figure it out. He wants them to come to a position where they know who he is. They are at the crossroads, so to speak. They're at a position, they're at a position where they need to decide what they think of Jesus. Do they think that Jesus is just a good teacher, or is he something more than that? Is he just a moral guy, or is he something more? Do they follow him to the end, or do they deny him? From this point on, Jesus is really saying, look guys, you need to figure out who I am, because there's no turning back after this. Life is full of spectators. There can be thousands in the stands, but only 22 are on the pitch. There can be hundreds in the arena watching the fight, but there are only 2 in the ring. You see, guys, there comes a time when you all have to get off the fence, where you have to make a decision on who you think Jesus is. Will you be a spectator, or will you come and participate with Jesus in his ministry, in his mission to the world? We don't want you to be always on the sidelines looking in. We don't want you to be outside of God's family, looking in at us who are enjoying the blessings and the benefits and the fellowship that comes with being part of God's family. We don't want you to be shut out of that forever. We want you to get off the fence and participate with us, to step into that boxing ring that we call the Christian faith. The disciples were at the crossroads, and so are we ultimately. Peter speaks up. Peter has an answer, and he says, you are the Christ. One of Jesus' best friends, the inner circle of 3, the penny, in one sense, has just dropped with him. And he says, you are the Christ. Now, we talk about Jesus Christ all the time. What we are not saying is that Christ is his surname, the son of Mr. and Mrs. Christ. It is not a surname, but a description of who he is. It is saying that Jesus is the King. No, not that king, not just any king, but God's king. All the miracles, think back through them. The healing of the paralyzed man, the calming of the storm, the raising of the little girl from the dead, the casting out of the demons of the demon-possessed man. Who is this man? Well, he is the Christ. He is God's king. We see there is more to this king than meets the eye, as we see in verse 31. And he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things, be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. This was no ordinary king. This is a king who came to suffer. To suffer betrayal, to suffer beating, rejection, shame, mocking, complete desertion by his friends. All his friends abandoned him. To endure the nails and the pain of the cross. To breathe his last breath, and then 3 days later to rise victorious again. Who is this man? Who is this king? Well, he is the Christ. He is God's king. Would it be easier if Jesus lived today? Probably not. We'd probably still reject him, like they did 2,000 years ago. People reject Jesus continually because they don't want to give up running their own life. They want to continue being the boss, and they reject Jesus because of that. What we need to do is we need to admit that Jesus is the king. It's not that we make him king, it's that he's king whether we like it or not. It's whether or not you recognize his kingship. If you're a Christian here tonight, then what you need to do is that you need to thank God that he has given you eyes to see who Jesus really is. You need to thank God that you're no longer outside of God's family, that you've been brought from a position as a spectator to a participator with Him, that you are now a loved Son of God. And who do the people around you say that Jesus is? And can you help them? Can you help them to see the real Jesus? If you're not a Christian, then we would obviously want to encourage you and exhort you to become one. To decide that yes, Jesus is the King, and that I want to follow Him. I don't want to be a spectator the rest of my life. I don't want to waste my life on the fence. I want to do something that really matters. I want to follow the King. Jesus is the King. We would ask you to come to the crossroads and to ask yourself, will I follow or will I deny? Your mates think